Go live.
So, good evening, everyone. Hello. How are we all on this fine evening? Let's see some enthusiasm in the chat. I'm sure a lot of Flutter developers are here already. So, let's see some enthusiasm in the chat. How excited are you all for today's session? I am very excited, to be very honest. So, how many of you have any prior experience to Flutter, Flutter development, or Android development? And if yes, what kind of exposure? Have you worked on real time projects? Have you worked as a mentor? Great, that's a lot of enthusiasm in the chat. So, I think we'll start the session now. So, most of you must be wondering what exactly is Flutter Festival. So, Flutter Festivals is a community led event series that will help developers to join across the globe and learn some basic fundamental Google technologies like Flutter, Firebase, and Google Cloud. So, without further ado, I'll dive into the session. But first, I'll introduce all the GDSC leads who are here, who have worked so very hard to, organize the session. So, first of all, it's me. I am Dhwani Gupta. I am the GDSC lead at MIT Jammu. Next up, we have Vriddhi. Vriddhi, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, Bunny, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I am Riddhi Gupta and I'm the lead of GDSC VJTI. I hope you all learn a lot from this session. Thank you.
Thanks, Vriddhi. Next up, we have Tejasvi. I'm sorry she couldn't join today, but next up we have Soham, who is the GDSC lead at DJ Sanghavi. Next up we have Karthik, who is the Flutter facilitator for VIT Mumbai. Karthik, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Dhwani. Hello, everyone. Myself, Karthik Bodhankar. I am the Flutter facilitator at Vidyalankar Institute of Technology, Mumbai. My most lovable technological domains are cloud computing and, of course, the Flutter. And yeah, I'm very much excited about this workshop. And yeah, Dhwani, over to you.
So I guess Karthik just fit right into the Flutter festival. Next up, we have Abhay, who is the Flutter facilitator for GDSC VJTI. Abhay, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Dhwani. So I am Abhay Ubhade. I am the app development lead at GDSC VJTI and also the Flutter Festival facilitator for this Flutter Festival.
Thank you, Abhay. So next up, I request Riddhi to come up and introduce the guest speaker for today, whom we all have been waiting for. Over to you, Riddhi.
Thank you so much, Dhwani. So, hello, everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Shrihriday Bhagwat, who is the founder and CEO of Codeaamy Private Limited. Sir is a self-taught Flutter developer and the technical editor for Flutter at rayvenderlick.com. Sir also holds a PhD in the Sanskrit language and is an excellent app and web developer. He has created a number of Flutter applications and websites, including LaserQuit, a tracker app that tracks smoking habits and assists users in quitting smoking, and Cambridge Little Ones, a preschool application that helps preschool students in watching pre-recorded videos uploaded to online storage, and many such applications. So, in addition to all of this, he has a YouTube channel as well where he teaches users how to construct beautiful Flutter applications. Now, I would like to request our speaker to take over from here. Thank you so much.
Hey, hi. Thank you guys for giving such a warm welcome to me. And I'm really thankful for Flutter Festival to conduct such beautiful events where we can teach and spread the importance of Flutter, which is gaining right now. And again, thank you for you guys who are taking so much efforts backstage, which I know is really very hard. Because even I have arranged some programs, I know how much difficulties we have to face. So commendable work that you all guys have done here. So thank you for bringing me on board. And as you guys have introduced me very nicely, without taking much ado, let us start with our today's event. So the topic of the today's event is Flutter Road Map. The Dart bike to speed your Flutter knowledge. Okay, you can see how fun it was over here. So let's get started over here. And before getting started, again, I would like to give a special thanks to the Google Developer Students Club at Vidyalankar Institute of Technology, at Dwarkadas Jivanlal Sangvi College of Engineering, Usha Mittal Institute of Technology, Model Institute of Engineering and Technology, and Veer Mat Jizabai Technological Institute. Thank you guys. You are very commendable at your work, and I'm really glad to be present at such a platform where we together are expanding the Flutter. So let's get started. And as you guys have introduced me very nicely, but still, again, if you want to know my socials over here, they are mentioned. You can follow me at Twitter, at Medium, and as well as Codeaamy. I also do my blogs. I'm also a public speaker on such topics. So wherever you feel like, you can follow me, and yes, together we can grow this community very much. So coming back, before learning how to learn Flutter, let us first understand what is Flutter. So Flutter is Google's UI toolkit for building beautiful natively compiled applications for mobile, web, and desktop from a single code base. So here you should always remember that we are using code word as in uh, UI toolkit. So it focuses on UI, as well as it is natively compiled applications for mobile, web, and desktop. Over here, natively means the application that we build in Flutter, they get converted to the native code that we're using. For example, let's say for Android, Kotlin or Java, and for Apple or the iOS, it's get converted to Swift and Objective C. Objective C is rarely used, but usually it gets converted to Swift. So when the application is launched, it gives us the native field and not like any other cross platform present. Okay, and that too with just a single code base. Like we don't have to write each other platform specific codes. Apart from that, with Flutter, you can create applications for Android, iOS, web, and Windows as well. And right now, Flutter is also supporting Fuchsia and macOS as well. So these all are very nice. This is some of the UIs that they can build in Flutter, and we are not limited to this UIs, but the limit that we have is only the imagination that we can get. So whatever you can think, you can build in Flutter. So this is the power of Flutter. And if you know how powerful it is, and now you want to know how to learn, then let us get back to the Flutter roadmap. Okay, in this roadmap, I will teach you, like, if you want to learn Flutter, how you should learn it, what are the topics that you should cover beforehand, and what should be the step by step path to learn Flutter, and to just not learn it but to excel it and to learn it in a proper way. Now, before understanding the roadmap, the most important part is that any programming language or any application development is a communication from a human perspective to the computer perspective. That means we are communicating with the computer, and we are telling the computer key you have to do such things. And to communicate, we both should be on a single language. There should be a single common language which can be understood by both the computer as well, and as well the person who is interacting with the computer. So before starting anything, we must first learn the language. And the language that we learn, or the language that is used to code Flutter, is Dart. So we should start with learning language. Now, when we learn a language, there are huge concepts in a language, and it's not limited to just a small part. And learning everything at the start is very, very difficult. So these are some of the key points which we have removed or segregated apart from the entire language pool, that even if you learn this much, it will help you to create a nice sustainable application, and in future you can increase your knowledge depending on this, or you can scale up your knowledge on the languages or the knowledge that you have right now. So in the languages, you should always start with variables. Now, I know some people might be new, or some people they might have previous knowledge. We won't go in deep about explaining what variables are and what are these concepts, but Yes, if you are from any other background of computer field, let's say if you know Java, or let's say if you know Kotlin, or even if you know HTML, CSS, you know what variable are. And the same variable definition is applied in Dart itself also. In variables, after that, you have to learn the data types of the variable. In Dart, we have very few data types. Example, there is int, that means numbers 1 to 10, 1000, 0, negative numbers. Then we have string means sentences that we have. Boolean, it just two values, true or false. Then list in Dart means kind of a array. If you know Java and if you know any other languages, you might be familiar with array, so that is list. And maps, so map is kind of a key value pair data type that is very useful in, let's say, in databases, and passing the data or getting the data. So that is all in maps. Over here, you can see in the next flow diagram, when you're learning string, make sure that you pay attention to some of the basic function of string. Like there is some function like toString, or string interpolation, string, or joining two strings, or when you can replace some part of the string. So this will help you to explore your application even further. When you will focus on learning lists, also list or maps, also make sure you give focus to few of the points that we have. For example, the length, how to count the length of the items present in the list or a map, how to add items into the list, or how to insert at a particular point. Let's say there are 10 items in a list and you want to enter something at fifth point. Then how you can do that to check whether the list is empty or is not empty, so that you can use that condition to create an application, to extract an item from the list, or to generate random objects of a list. For example, if you want to create a list of 10 random colors, you can just use the generate function of a list to generate random colors. You don't have to write each and every color inside the list. So there are some few points which you should cover while learning the data types. After that, you should learn operators. Now, what are operators? Operators is something that will help you do the operation in your application. For example, there is arithmetic operators. It will help you to do arithmetic sums inside the application. So if you want to add two digits, so that is the addition. If you want to multiply two numbers, then that will be multiplication arithmetic operation. You can divide the two numbers, so that are arithmetic operations. Relational operators are greater than, less than. If you want to find if a value is greater than b value, then you will have to use relational operators. What are logical operators? Logical operators are and or. If you want to check between two conditions, then you will put a and logical operator. And if you want to check if either one of the condition is true, then you will put the or logical operator. And ternary operators, it is kind of a short form for if else, where you use the question mark and the colon. So coming back down to conditionals, conditionals are where it gives you two ways in your program, and depending on the user's choice, we will select either it is path A or path B. So it is if else conditions or if else ladder. If there are more than two paths, and how the user is behaving or interacting, or how the values you're getting, you will select where your application will take you. And switch cases as well. Switch is kind of if else, but in a better way. And uh, least that you should know is loops. Loops are very important. What are loops? Imagine there is a task that you have to do again and again. If you want to print one number 100 times, you can write the print statement 100 times. You can use copy paste, but you can create a small loop function which will repeat that loop until and unless that number is achieved. So it is used for a repetitive task. And there are some important loops like for loop, while loops, do while loops. And if you're using list and maps, and if you want to do one task again and again for that list till the end where the list gets over, you can use for each on that list as well. Now, setting up Flutter. Let's see, you have done with your Dart language, and now you want to install Flutter and you want to get going with the application. Then you should know how to set Flutter. So you can go at the link shared in the chat. and there you will get the links of where from where you can set up Flutter. And you can set up Flutter on the OS. There are multiple OSs which support Flutter: Mac OS, Windows, Linux. I would prefer, if you have the liberty to own a Mac, then you could set up Flutter on Mac, because if you have Mac, then you can develop application for Android and as well as iOS and Mac OS. On Windows, you can develop the application for Android, iOS, and all the platforms. But to test it, to test the application on iOS, you would need a Mac, because to create simulator, you need Xcode, and Xcode only runs on Mac. So if you have a Mac, you will actually get a complete control over Flutter apart from Windows, because to run the Windows desktop support for Flutter, you will need Windows. But then again, you can install a VM inside Mac and use Windows there as well. And with OS, we also have to choose the IDE that we use. Depending which background you have, if you have a background in Android, or let's say you have built applications for Android, so you might be familiar with Android Studio, you can carry forward that experience and install Flutter plugin for Android Studio. If you are coming from web background, then you might have hands-on knowledge with VS Code, so you can use the Flutter plugin for VS Code. If you're coming from Xcode, or if you're coming from iOS developer, both will be new, so it's your choice. If you'll give me my preference, I use VS Code, because VS Code is very light and it is very fast compared to Android Studio. But then again, Android Studio has their plus point as well. You don't have to create the launch JSON file, and everything is done very fastly by Android Studio. The project setup is done very nice. So for starters, you can start with Android Studio and later on shift to VS Code, or how it feels your comfort zone. Choose the ID that you want, but these both IDEs are very good and very nice. Now, coming to the next slide, before creating the pattern, before creating any application, we must understand what design pattern we are going to use. Flutter supports two design pattern. One is material design, and you can see a Google logo at the bottom. Means the design that are made by Google, or the guidelines which Google implements in its design. And at the right side, you can see Cupertino design. So now Cupertino is specifically for the iOS. So material design follows the Android material pattern, and Cupertino design follows the iOS material pattern. So you can choose whichever design pattern you want, or your application want, and you can go ahead. After understanding the design pattern, you should also understand that everything in Flutter is a widget. So no matter what you see on a screen is widget, and we should understand the classification of widgets. Now, widgets are classified in numerous ways, and I've tried to mention all of them. So let's first get started with the stateless and stateful widget. So a stateless widget is a widget which doesn't hold any state inside the application, and you can't see the real-time changes in the widget. A stateful widget is a widget which will hold its state, and you can see that if the value is changed in the widget, then it can be reflected on the application and the screen reloads itself. Okay, this is one type of classification. The other type of classification is layout widgets. Now, widgets used to create the UI or the layout of the application. Now, there are two kinds of widgets over here. One is single child, and other is multi-child. I know it should be multi-children, but again, I don't know why. Multi-child. Now, what is single child? A widget which has an option to child one more widget. Okay, so you can put, or you can insert one widget inside another widget in Flutter. And if a widget can insert just a single widget, then it is called a single child. And examples are, and these are not the examples, but these are the widgets that you should learn, or at least you should know about. So a container widget, a center widget, padding, sized box, expanded. I think you know what is a container widget, center widget, padding to give padding from all the sides. Sized box is the amount or a size of box that you can create. Let's say you want a blank space somewhere, you can just create a x amount of width and height box, and you can put that box in your application where the spacer will be there. And expanded widget to expand the amount of screen that is present for you. And in multi-child, we have rows, columns, and stacks. So a row means something that you arrange horizontally in your application, let's say from left to right. uh, there are uh, there is a button, and then there is a text field. Then you will have to put a button and a text field inside a row. Then it would be that there would be a button at the left, and at the right there would be a text field. And column arranges application from top to bottom. Let's say at the top you have an image and you want a caption at the bottom. Then you would need column, because column is from top to bottom, and stack means on top of the other. So from back of the screen to the front of the screen. These are the three kinds of multi-child widgets that you should know. Okay. And getting back to our basic interface widgets. Now these widgets will help you to create a layout. But what about the interaction of the user with the application? So to create an interaction with the user and the application, you would need some interface widgets. Now, what are interface widgets? They are simple widgets where a user can either press a button, or either type something, a text field, or read something from the screen. So this is where the user is interacting with the application, and these are very important. So there are basic that you should know. It's a scaffold, text field, form widget, a button widgets. Many kinds of buttons are present, so you can start exploring them. And gesture detectors. What are gesture detectors? A widget which will detect the gestures. For example, you're swiping left to right, or your scroll is also a gesture. So those widgets. Apart from that, navigation bars. You have an app bar on the top. There is the title. You have, when there is a back button. You also have a bottom navigation bar in the applications where there are five screens, and those five screens are present at the bottom. Apart from that, we also have a layout builder at the top, which will help us to create a list view and also grid view. For example, there are applications that you need, and you can lay that application in list view and grid view builders. Okay. Coming to the design components. Now, what are design components? Let's say how you style the application, then how you theme the application, and how you decorate the application. In style, we have color, font size of the applications that we need. In theme, this is a new way where you can define a theme of your complete application, and once that theme is defined, you can interchange your application between that themes directly. For example, light and dark. So you can define a light theme, you can define a dark theme, and you can switch from theme A to theme B according to time. Right now that we are saying at the night, our applications get switched to the dark mode, right? Then decoration. For decoration, we have a box decoration and input decoration. Box decoration is something that will decorate the box, and input decoration is something that will help us decorate the text fields and whatever we have over here. Now, after learning the design components, you should get started with the navigator. For example, there is not an application which will just have a single screen, right? You will be having multi-screen in the application. And for that multi-screen in the application, you should be able to go from screen 1 to screen 2 in the application, right? And for that, you will need navigator. Now, what is a navigator? A navigator is a function in Flutter that will take you from screen 1 to other screens. And there are two main functions over here. One is push and one is pop, because our screens are kind of a stack in Flutter. So screens are arranged on top of each other. When you push, a new screen is added on top of the stack, as you can see. And when you pop, the pop removes the screen on top from outside the stack. So the previous screen is visible again. So push will take you forward to the screen, and pop will get you back to the previous screen. With this, you can also learn how to send data to the next screen, and how you can retrieve the data back to your previous screen. Okay. So you should pay attention to the navigator as well. Coming back, importing assets. Now, there is an application without images and fonts won't look that good. Okay, so you might need to import some assets into your application. So you should learn how to import assets. For example, how you can use your logos or your images inside your application. There is a login screen, you have your own logo, and you want that logo to be shown. So for that, you would need to import the asset. How, if you want to use some custom font, you like some font very nicely and you want to use that font, so for that you would need some custom fonts over there. So how you can import those custom fonts? Plugins. Now, why to reinvent the wheel? If something is already present, you don't have to take it again and again and create it again and again. So, for that, if I have created something and it is easily available to you, just use that. And for that, we have many plugins created and there are present on pub.dev on the link that you will get. And from that, if you will search whatever you want, you will get the plugin, import the plugin, and you can do your work. So you can import plugin as well. And to do this, you will have to understand the pubspec.yaml file. So it is very easy. You can just Google how to import plugins and you will come to know. But uh, that should be one of the important tasks that you should do or learn in Flutter. And with this, you will also have to create functions. Now, what are functions? Function is a set of code which has instructions given to the computer or to our application. So now there are different kind of functions in Flutter. Let's start with a normal function. So a normal function is a function which has no return type or a void return type. Means it returns nothing. It is just a normal function. Normal function with parameters means a function in which you can input some parameters which can be used inside a function. Okay, functions with return type. Now a function with return type means that this function will return something. It will return either a string or a number. Example, you want to create a function with return type which will add two functions, which will add two numbers and will return the addition or will return the result number to the value. So you can create that function with return type and a parameter. So this function will have a return type and will also take parameters. So here you can create a function which will return the addition of two numbers, and those two numbers will be taken from the user. So you can create that way. Anonymous function is function which doesn't have any name. So there is no name for this function. It is just a function that you can call. Now you can see this anonymous function used at a button press or a gesture detector where you don't need a name to the function. You will just write the function and you know that when the person will click the button or when the person will interact, that function will be called. So that is called as anonymous function. And async await. So what is async await? When you want to create some asynchronous task in your application so that it doesn't load your main thread, you remove that application, you remove that task from the main thread and put it aside, and you keep the rest of the task running in that thread so your application doesn't lag. That is called as asynchronous function. And you will need this asynchronous function to create your http request or to get data from internet. So for that you will have to learn that or at least go through the async await functions. Now, networking. Networking means taking data from the server or interaction with the server. Now, how that is done? That is done usually by API calling. Now, when the APIs are written in the server, they give you the ways and tools how you can do the API calling. But we should also know from our side how it is done in Flutter. So there is a get request and a post request. So get request gets the data from the server and post request post the data to the server. Now, get request example is getting the weather data, creating a climate app where you get the weather of your city or the location that you are. And post request is when you submit a form to the server and then the server returns back something. So you're submitting your data to the server. Before doing API calling or while doing API calling, you should also be able to parse the data that you're getting. Now, right now, most of the APIs you get data in JSON format. So you should be able to serialize the data and deserialize the data. Now, what are these two concepts? When you convert the data from object to the string format. It is called as serialization, where you're serializing the data. And when you deserialize the application, the deserialized JSON format means you revert the string JSON to the object format and use inside the application. And there is a very nice package called as HTTP package, which is very useful to make this API calls. So you should focus on these three things while you're doing networking. Now, database. Imagine you got lot of data and now you want to store that data. To store that data, you would need some database, right? And right now, let us focus on storing the data in our local database. Okay. So there are few of the database that you should know, and this database are stored in our phone storage. Okay, it is stored in our phone storage, the space that we have in our phone. So when you open the application, you can take the data from our phone storage as well. And there are very nice databases that we have. One is SQLite. You can the normal SQLite data that we have, and there is also Hive and Symbast packages which will help you to make your database procedure very easily. And the fourth option you can see is shared preference. Now, shared preference is used to have a very small amount of data that you locally want to store in your application. Okay, so what this shared preference does is it creates, when the data is very small, you can use it to store that value accordingly. And let's say you want to store if the user is logged in or logged out, at what level the person is or what points he has. So that kind of data you can store by shared preference. Okay, now shared preference is an Android term, and in iOS I think it's user defaults. That way this Flutter shifts something, okay, and converts it, and we can use it in our native platforms. Coming after our local database, if you want to create something with online capabilities, learning to create a server is very difficult at the start. But for our rescue, Google has also created Firebase Firestore. Okay, and integrating Firestore in Flutter application is very very easy. All you have to do is create a Flutter project and create a Firebase project and just integrate them. The plugins are very nice, the plugins are super easy to understand, and it is very easy to interact with Firebase. What is Firebase? Firebase is a Google's serverless database. Okay, you don't have to create the server, everything is done by Google. It is a service database that you can use inside your application. And to use that, there are few of the things that you should know. For example, what are documents, what are collection, how to send data to your Firebase or Firestore database, how to retrieve data from Firestore Firebase, how you can query your data, how you can filter your data, how you can delete the data from your Firestore Firebase or from your database over there, and how you can authenticate the user. Right now, you can see we have many kinds of authentication in our application. A user can log in through email password. A user can log in through phone authentication. User can log in with Google, Facebook, and with Apple login as well. Nowadays, we can also log in through GitHub. There is passwordless login. You just have to enter your email and you will be logged in. So this all are present at Firebase authentication, and you can use each and every service, that too with free of cost for some limited amount of time. Not time, till a limited amount of numbers you have attend. Okay, for example, you can use phone authentication for free of cost till 100 users simultaneously. So these are some of the plus points of Firebase that we have. And I would really really like if you guys could pay a bit of attention for Firebase Firestore, because 90% of your application would be able you would be able to complete just by giving Firebase and Firestore as your backend server. Okay, now, coming back to some of the advanced concepts of Dart. At the start, we explored few of the basic concepts of Dart, but now let us come to understand some of the advanced concept. Now, core libraries. These are some of the core libraries in the Dart that you might need. For example, you want to find a random number from 1 to 100. then you would use the math library present, the mathematics library present in our Dart file. So you can figure out those core libraries that you will be needing. Now, state management. Now, what is state management? When you're running your application, the new data is arrived, and you want to show that new data on your application. So you have to reload the screen. As I mentioned earlier, for that we use a stateful widget. But there are many developers who have created some state management plugins, for example, Provider, Block, GetX, Redux, and you can use those plugins inside your application to make your state management even better. So if you have a big application, a huge application, and there are multiple screens, so all those screens to manage everything, the layout, the process, it becomes tedious after some time. When you have 30-40 screens, when you reach to that level, it becomes tedious at that point of view. So over there, state management can really help. If you'll ask me which is the best state management, then actually it will create a havoc in the Flutter group and the Flutter community. So I would leave that question apart. Whichever suits you, whatever state management suits you, you can start. Generally, people use Provider, Block, GetX. So these are the top that I have selected. GetX was at the top of the plugins chart for some time. I think it is still. So you can start with GetX. Whatever is easier for you to understand, you can go. But the documentations, if you'll see, Provider, Block, GetX, all three have very nice documentation. The community is very big, so you will always get help from other members. So you can go with this. And now, coming to the testing part in our application. I was a person who used to rarely test the application, but recently, after paying attention to the testing part, it is one of the most crucial part because it saves a lot of time in future when you have to debug the application and when you have to scale the application. So there are three kinds of testing. One is unit testing, widget testing, and integrating testing. Sorry for writing unit testing again. That one is integrated testing. Okay, you can learn about the testing from the official Google Docs. There it will help you. Okay, now each and every application has some architecture. What kind of architecture you follow? And our Flutter community is usually divided, or the app development community is usually divided in the two architecture. One is MVC and second is MVVM. MVC means model view controller, where we have a model class, we have a view class, and we have the controller class. And MVVM means model view model. We have a view model which is in the between, and it distributes our models and views inside the application in a separate segments. The MVC architecture is an old architecture, and the MVVM architecture is a new architecture. So I would advise you guys to give a bit of attention to the MVVM architecture and follow that architecture. That is recent, that is new, and it will always help you to scale your application further. So .NET developers and many other developers you will see coming from iOS and Android, because iOS on Swift, it usually uses MVVM model. So the users are familiar with the MVVM model. Sorry, the developers are familiar with the MVVM model, and when they come into the Flutter development, they carry forward their knowledge of MVVM from Swift and Kotlin to the Flutter. That's why you will find most of the applications in Flutter are built on MVVM models, and it is actually good, and it is very fast compared to, and it is very easy to track the application process. Now, let's say you have done with your Flutter and you're looking for a job. Nowadays, with COVID and everything, remote jobs are very handy. And to get remote jobs, you should be able to know Git. What is Git? Git is a tool which will help you to create or to save your application process that you're doing it in a course of time. Okay, it is a version control tool which will help you to control the versions of your application. And say by chance you messed up, or your code is not readable, or you did something very wrong, and you cannot go back to the changes on your own. That time Git will surely help you. You can just go back a stage behind and start your process again, kind of when you're playing a game and you save at the same points. That is what Git does locally. But when you're working in a team and you divide the task of an application, You cannot just copy paste the code from one person to another through pen drives or mails. For that, Git will surely help you. So there are few of the comments from Git that you should know before going ahead. First, that is Git init. It will help you to initialize the project. Git stage. Stage is a staging area where we add the files that we are going to send to our remote place where our code will be. Commit means it copies the snapshot. Now we have the code in our PC. The commit will copy the snapshot, and that will the snapshot of the files on stage, and will send that to the remote branch or the remote place. Push is a comment that will push the actual code or the actual snapshot that we have created to the remote branch. Merge will merge two branches. When you will use git log, you will get all the history of the git that you have done, all the uh, history that you have before of the application. Git branch is used to create a new branch or check all the branches that are present at your place. Switch, when you want to switch between branch A to branch B, then you can use the git switch command. The PR is called as pull request. When you created a feature in your application and you have pushed your branch to the remote branch, to the main branch, then you will have to create a pull request where once you pull that code gets merged to the main branch and it is available to everyone again. And when we do it, there might be some conflicts. So you should also learn how to solve the merge conflicts and how to rebase your current branch. Let's say there are multiple bases right now that you have, and there is some problem. That time you'll have to rebase the current branch. I'm not going too much into rebase because that is very rarely used, but you should know it. And to make all this process easy, you can use some Git tools, you can use desktop, you can use command line tools, or if you want some easy way method, you can use Git Karen tool, which is very nice. I personally used it because one of my friends recommended it. And after using it, I can still feel the difference of doing Git command line ways or desktop ways and in a Git Karen way. So I would suggest you can go with Git Karen. You're done with Flutter, you're done with Dart, and you still have some ample time at your hands, then I would suggest you to learn other languages, but not any random language. You can start with Kotlin for Android because that will help you to create some extra features in your Flutter application. You can also learn Swift. If you have a Mac, you can learn Swift so that you can integrate iOS very nicely. For having the Flutter web support, you can also learn HTML, CSS, then JavaScript for web as well, and as well you can create backend with Node.js and everything. So JavaScript will be handy, and some of the terminal and command line tools that you have. If you want, you can also learn Linux language or Linux commands that will help you to scope your work very nicely. And then our final step, which we are very eagerly waiting, is to deploy our application to the stores. Now, with Flutter, you can deploy the application to App Store and Play Store. To deploy the application to App Store, you would need a Mac. You can borrow your friend's Mac and you can install Flutter on that, and you can deploy from App Store. For Play Store, there is no specific. You can deploy from any OS. You can deploy from Windows, from Mac, from Linux, so that won't be an issue. So before deploying the applications to stores, make sure you read the guidelines that they have. Otherwise, they will reject your application. So this step is very important. It is a bit time consuming, but it is worth the wait and worth the read. So there are some different guidelines that Apple gives. There are different guidelines that Google gives. Go through it once. So when you get some error, you would be able to tackle it. Now, one of the most important thing is community work. Whenever you are learning something, be the part of the community because the community will always help you. So how to increase your community work? You can attend, you can be a part of Flutter meetups, participate, help them, voluntary, give your help voluntarily. If some event is coming, be a participant or go into the organization part of the event. Okay, give some open source contribution. There is Flutter on GitHub, which is completely open source. You can there is issues present. There are a lot of issues there in the issue section of the GitHub. Choose a issue, try to solve it, and create a pull request. Yes, that would actually help you. Public learning, whatever you're learning, always post that on Twitter and social medias that you are learning this, that will help you to create a profile even stronger. Nowadays there very few people have the liberty to actually read the entire resume. Nowadays people search on social medias, and from your social media presence they choose most of the, or they screen, at least they will screen from that part. Okay. For apart from that, create a network, intermingle with the people who are in your same field, so that you can ask for help later, which you are going to need. No matter how good developer you are, you will need help, and Stack Overflow won't come to your help always. Okay. So create the network, increase your network, and attend events. There are some events like this which are happening, so attend events. And this community work isn't just specifically for Flutter. No matter what language you're learning, if you're into web, give importance to the web community work. If you're into desktop app, give importance to the desktop community. Okay, so take part in such events. Learning Flutter for job perspective, then you have to create your profile accordingly. So be active on Twitter. To be honest, I felt that there are many opportunities on Twitter more than on LinkedIn. I have got many requests from Twitter as a job request than I've ever got on LinkedIn. Create a very nice GitHub profile. Okay. Increase your Git contribution. So contribute a lot to the GitHub profile, which will help the users to make sure, okay, yeah, this guy is really worth it. Do sample projects. Let it be small, let it be single screen, two multi-screen applications. Okay. But create sample projects, so when some HR calls you for interview, or when you're interacting for your job, at least you will have something to share with them. Okay. Answers on Stack Overflow. If you have some free time, you can sit back, relax, and you can post some answers on Stack Overflow. This will help the community as well as it will help you, and you can test your knowledge there as well. Okay. And as I've mentioned again, in the description or in the chat, we will share some of the important links where it will be easier for you to understand what all we have done. Okay. Or what is the process and when to find the information that I have explained you right now. And guys, again, special thanks to such a nice community which has given me such a great chance to speak and to share my knowledge that I have learned from this experience of Flutter. So again, special thanks to Google Developer Students Club, from Vidyalankar Institute, from Dwarkadas College of Engineering, from Usha Mittal Institute of Technology, Model Institute of Engineering and Technology, Veer Mata Jijabai Technological Institute. Guys have done a commendable job. Okay, and special thanks to the panel which is helping me right now at the backstage. I might be the front facing over here, but they are the guys which are doing everything behind, arranging, always being in touch with me. Sir, how much work has been done, what we have to do, explaining me the part, what I have to do very nicely. So, a round of applause for you guys. And thank you. I take my time here. So, back to you, Vriddhi.
Thank you so much, sir, for your efforts. Thank you so much for coming and giving such a wonderful session. We will be now starting with the Q&A session,
Yes.
as we had talked about earlier. So, okay. So the first question is from Aryan Purana. Uh, what makes Flutter application better than Android application developed using Java?
What makes a Flutter application better
Better,
than
yes.
Android application built in Java? Okay,
Java.
so Flutter builds a native application. So there won't be any difference when you build a Flutter application or a Java application. But we have found evidence that Flutter application runs faster compared when you use the native application. Moreover, you get a wide variety of support from Flutter. For example, you created an Android application, it is just limited to Android. But once you create a Flutter application, it is limited not just to Android, but you can also get iOS support with it. You will also get a web support with it. And to create a, what we say, a proper UI, Flutter is very easy. To create a UI, Flutter is very easy. Moreover, we have to write lot of code in Java, and we have to write very little code compared to in Flutter. So it will speed up your development process. It will enhance your development process. In app perspective way, there won't be much difference, and it is a good thing that there is not much difference because we are giving the native effect to the user. But in development, we have hot reload and all those stuff which will help us to create application very faster. So that is the main difference of using Flutter over other native languages.
I hope that clears your doubt, Aryan. Moving on to the next doubt. This is from Sushme. So Sushme is asking, is Flutter stable with all the new updates that is coming out?
Yeah, currently Flutter is stable for mobile. It was stable from a long time. Okay, then for web, it's been 1 year. It is stable for web, and recently the Flutter 2.10 is stable for Windows, or let's say for desktop application as well. I have created few desktop application for trial purpose, and it is quite stable. But no language or no technology is 100% stable. You can still see we get updates for Kotlin and Java even now, and Flutter will also become very much stable. But yes, right now it is commendably stable right now, and you can use it.
Okay, I hope that clears your doubt, Sushme. Moving on to the next. This doubt is from Coding Abby. Very nice username. Can you explain how Flutter works with different screen sizes, since it works as both app and website?
So what Flutter does is Flutter renders it from a pixel point of view. So it renders the widget to the pixel perfect part of the screen. And if you want to scale your application to different sizes of the screen, then you can use media query over there, which from media query you can get the current size of the screen and you can align your application accordingly. For example, if you can put media query width, you will get the width of the media that you are using. And you can say that if it is greater than 500, then it should be a desktop, or if it is less than 200 or 300, then it would be a phone. So with that logic, you can create widgets for different screens. So if this is your question, how you can resize the application, then you can resize that with media query. And if your question is how Flutter does it, then what Flutter does it stretches your container completely to the amount of screen that you have present, and accordingly it adjusts itself. It paints on a canvas kind of stuff.
Okay, that's great. I hope it clears your doubt, Abby. Moving on to the next. This doubt is from Amay. So Amay is asking, can we make web app using Flutter?
Yes, we can make web apps using Flutter. There are many web apps. Kind of, you can make web apps kind of Netflix and all. Netflix is done in React, but yes, we can do that kind of applications in Flutter.
Okay, so I hope Amay, you can try making a website in Flutter once we start with our workshops. Uh, Moving on, Aziz is asking if you can explain async, await, and future again.
See, actually, the async, await, and future, these are a very huge term. I will still try to explain. In an application, we this application has a single thread. It is a synchronous process when we create an application. For example, the functions are run or they are running one after the another in a single thread, and some functions take time. Okay, so unless and until that function is completed, we cannot go to the second function. Why? Because it has clocked it. It is taking, it is consuming time. Now let's say we have to create an API request and have to get some weather data from the internet. Now, unless and until I get the weather data, our application can't move forward if it is in a single thread. So what we do is, and it's called as a synchronized process. So what we do is we remove that function out of our single thread and we make that function asynchronous. Okay, synchronous means one after the another, and asynchronous means not synchronized. So we get that function outside of our single thread, means we unclog the path so that the other functions are running very nicely. Now, why we need, so this is called as async. Now, why we need await? Because in that function you have to wait unless and until you get the data from the HTTP request that you have made. So you are telling your function to come aside from the synchronous process, but wait unless and until you get that data. So await keyword is used at a variable part where you are getting the data, and the and to make that variable await, or to make that variable wait unless and until you get the data, you have to remove that function from your synchronous thread. That's why you have to add the async keyword. And the future keyword that we use is, let's say you are going to get a data in future, you know that you're going to get the data in future, that's why you use that future keyword. I hope I was able to explain this.
Yes, sir. I guess your explanation was great. Uh, Moving on to our next question. This question is also from Aziz. He is asking that why do we need to use mixins? If I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, mixins. Now let's what are basically mixins? Are mixins is when you mix two things inside your classes, kind of implementation, but then there is some different part. Now mixing comes in a very advanced stage of Flutter. For example, if you need animation controller and any other objects, for that you would need special mixings. For that you have to use mixings. But if your application is basic, or even if your application is normal, I don't think you would need mixings for that.
Okay, okay. So I hope Aziz, your doubts are cleared. Moving on to the next question. This is from Ankit Sharma and is asking why Flutter apps are larger in size.
Yeah. So now, yeah, when I started developing Flutter application at the start, even I was baffled by the size they are. For example, Android application, if it would be of 4 MB, then the Flutter application would be of 10 or 12 or even larger MBs in size. So what it is, when you create an Android application, you just have a simple normal Android application. But when you create a Flutter application, they are not platform specific, and they have applications of both the processors for 86 as well, and as well as ARM, or let's say 64-bit processors. So we have the code of both the processors that we will need. That's why it takes a huge lot of chunk in it. Apart from that, if you'll see all the cross platform applications that we have, let's say React Native, each and everyone's size is a bit larger in size than compared to the native application that we are building. So but the when you develop an application in Flutter, when you export the build, make sure always clean the build before you export it. Remove the plugins that you don't need, because whenever you're using a single plugin, when you use a plugin, then again a single plugin also has also has support for both the CPUs. That's why a single plugin is again and again increasing the size of Flutter application. This is the main reason why Flutter applications are heavier on the size parameter.
Okay,
For
so
that, if you want
yeah.
to reduce the size, there are few ProGuard rules that will help you. And you can always split your build. For example, split your build for ARM, split your build for 86, and split your build according to the course. That will help you. It will be a bit time consuming, but that will significantly, I won't say very nicely, but significantly reduce the time, or the size, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so I hope it clears your doubt, Ankit. Even I had the same doubt actually. I had made one Flutter application and observed that the size was larger compared to the Android application that we make using Java and Kotlin. So yeah, even my doubt got cleared. Anyway, moving ahead. The next question is from Ajay Chandra Bhagwat. So he's asking that do we need to have knowledge of Java, C or C++ to learn Flutter?
Yeah, so basically, having previous knowledge of any language would be a plus, or let's say add on to learn Flutter. Yes, having Java knowledge will help you, but C and C++ won't matter, because C and C++ are completely different kind of programming languages for desktop. Yes, it will help you, but talking in and just mobile field development aspect, having Java knowledge is fine. But even if you don't have any other basic or say prior programming language, that won't matter. If you pay a bit attention, or if you focus yourself on Dart, and if you give some time on Dart, I think Dart is enough for you to learn Flutter, because we are just using Dart language. In our entire application, we are not using Java or C or C++. There are a few use cases where you would need platform specific codes, but once you reach at that level, I don't think understanding that small part of Java or Kotlin or Swift that you will need would be difficult to understand. So I don't think you need any other prior language experience or knowledge.
Okay, that's great. The ones who wish to learn Flutter don't have to, give time to learning some other languages and then learning Flutter.
Yeah.
Now, this is the last doubt for this session. Uh, this is a kind of personal advice that the user is asking from you, sir. So he is asking that will you advise a person knowing React to go for Flutter, as React Native is also available for cross platform development?
I would actually advise the person to go from React to Flutter, and there are many reasons. Basically, understanding the React technology, which I know, to be honest, I'm not much experienced in React. I have done few projects, but what React does is React is in JS, okay, JavaScript, and it creates a bridge, and that bridge converts the application to the native part, if I'm not wrong, or the application runs in that bridge part. Okay, this is where there is a few time lag that we have. Now, React Native is created by Facebook, but Facebook itself doesn't push React Native to build its application. It is using native. Why? Because React has some limitations. Okay. I would advise you to shift to Flutter, because first of all, Flutter is made by Google. A very huge R&D is going behind Flutter, and leave everything job perspective wise, in future Flutter is going to take over React, and I think it might have already taken over React. So just pros and cons, if you'll see, Flutter is having upper hand over React in performance as well as in development part, and in monetary gains as a job, Flutter is upholding React right now. So for you, I would actually suggest remove some time, learn a bit, React, so learning Flutter won't be that difficult for you, and that will help you. I hope
Right.
I
So
answered it nicely.
yes, sir, you answered it really nicely. So this was the last question for this session, and I hope that all your doubts are cleared. And if you have more doubts, then obviously you can reach out to us, or you can reach out to Shri sir. He has also provided his social media links in the first slide itself, so you can reach out to him. And thank you so much, sir, once again for answering all the questions so nicely and so I can
it's
say
it's my
so.
it's my pleasure. Like, these students are these people, they want to learn, and I
Yes,
would always help them. I would always guide them. They can contact me on Twitter anytime they want. I like when people actually come out of their way and they study and they want to develop themselves. That is one of the best quality that a person can have in itself. So it's very nice that these students or these developers want to learn. So it's an achievement for them, not me. And answering my question is, what we can say, it is my job, it's my duty. So I'm not doing something different or apart thing or some special thing. I'm just doing my duty. So it's just thanks to them that they have such doubts.
yes, and sir, even your session was really very helpful for every
Thank
one of
you.
us. So thank you, sir.
It
Now I will
it
hand. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Please
it
continue.
would haven't been possible with such a great backstage team again. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for recognizing our efforts as well.
Yeah, I'm just a speaker, but you're the one who have handled everything, so it is commendable.
Thank you, sir. So now I will hand it over to Karthik. Karthik, and you can take it over from here.
Yeah, Vriddhi, thanks a lot. So, thank you so much, sir, for this insightful session on the Flutter. And I hope that our viewers took something away from this session. And in future, we might expect some of the great app developers who are developing who are actually using the Flutter technology. And also thank you everyone for joining. We will be returning with more Flutter sessions and workshops in the future, so stay tuned.
Thank
Till
you.
now,
Thank you, guys.
goodbye.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you very much, Karthik. Good night. Bye bye.
Yes, sir. Good night.